One more day to go before October, and before you know it, we're at the end of an interesting year. One filled with ups, downs, and a lot of growing pains. But from all that we have faced and will face, learn we must. Hi, I'm Theodore Henry. Welcome to Jamaica Magazine. Much of our formal education remains online, and with the work-from-home arrangements still in place, many parents are spending much more time in a physical space with their child. It's not that easy, right? Today, we share parenting tips. Stay tuned for that and more as I guide you through the pages.
We are children and we have rights. We have a right to be
protected,
provided for,
and included.
Don't beat me up, don't belittle me, and please don't molest me.
I am under 13. I should not be working for a living.
That is child labor. It is illegal.
Stop leaving me alone. I am too young to provide for myself. I need your guidance.
Protect our nation's children. They have rights too. To learn more about children's rights, call or visit the offices of the Child Development Agency.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, September 29. The government will be spending approximately $33 billion more this financial year. The major focus is to provide additional resources to the health sector, increased resources for the most vulnerable, and funding for other critical areas of expenditure. A breakdown of the figure reflects an increase of $27.5 billion on the recurrent expenditure and interest payments of $5.5 billion. Capital expenditure remains the same. The adjustments were announced in Parliament Tuesday as Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke tabled the first supplementary estimates.
The first supplementary estimates are being tabled in the context of government revenues exceeding budgetary targets by $17.3 billion for the 4 months, April to July of 2021. This is reflective of the estimated robust economic growth of 12.9% for the first quarter of this year as the economy begins a strong recovery from COVID-19.
The increase in recurrent expenditure will include $15.6 billion, which will be used to support the vulnerable and provide a comprehensive COVID-19 response under the Serve Jamaica program.
Additional allocations include increases of $2.7 billion to augment the provision in the approved budget for public sector wage settlements, $1.7 billion for the police department to address critical expenditure, including arrears to suppliers of goods and services, $1.4 billion in a subvention to the University of Technology, whose reserves have been depleted by COVID-19, and $1.5 billion to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, $1 billion of which is for repairs and maintenance of secondary roads.
The first supplementary estimates will now go before the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee for deliberation. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is calling on global policymakers to implement innovative solutions which support sustainable development while eradicating poverty. Mr. Holness asserts that the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the significant financing gaps in the existing economic social system, which disproportionately affects the vulnerable. Mr. Holness made the call Tuesday as he addressed a United Nations high-level virtual meeting on jobs and social protection for poverty eradication and sustainable recovery.
As we chart a new course towards economic recovery, we must lay the foundations for a more resilient labor market and a more equal world. We must invest in upskilling and reskilling our workers for the jobs of the future to better prepare for the disruptions of the fourth industrial revolution, which the pandemic has only served to accelerate.
Prime Minister Holness, who is the co-convener of the Financing for Development Initiative, also called on world leaders to utilize the upcoming United Nations Climate Change Conference to drive the development agenda.
Investment in specific green sectors will have a substantial potential for creating sizable net gains in employment, while simultaneously protecting the environment. Such a strategy must be reinforced by robust social protection systems to to support workers in their transition to jobs in these new sectors.
The third and final phase of the Hurricane Sandy relocation project at Crooked River in Onoto Bay will get underway shortly. This as a $14.9 million contract has been signed for the construction of a storm water drainage system and the completion of a subdivision access road. The $67.4 million relocation project, funded by the Ministry of Housing, was launched in October 2012 following the passage of Hurricane Sandy, which resulted in 39 families losing their homes in Onoto Bay. Phase 1 and 2 of the project included the excavation of the roadway, installation of a sewerage treatment plant, and an electrical distribution system, as well as the construction of catchment basins and earth drains.
To date, 30 relocated families have been servicing their respective payments, which upon completion will generate a total of $17,555,000, $284.76. The sales for the 9 remaining lots will be placed on the open market and are valued at an approximate cost of $1.5 million each, which will amount to a total cost of $13.5 million.
Portfolio Minister Pernell Charles Jr. says the value of the 30 lots sold to the relocated families range from $500,000 to $1.2 million. In other news, the Ministry of Justice is reporting an 86% success rate in the restorative justice system for the first 8 months of the year. Through the restorative justice process, matters which can be resolved through mediation are moved from the courts to justice centers. Portfolio Minister Delroy Chuck says between January and August this year, of the 1,511 cases referred to restorative justice centers, 1,295 were resolved with the criminal records of most of the parties being unaffected.
So the Ministry of Justice, recognizing that restorative justice is working, we want to broaden it to every nook and cranny in Jamaica. We presently have 18 restorative justice centers, and shortly we will be opening 3 additional ones.
The 3 new centers are set to open in Pembroke Hall, Greenwich Farm, and Bunker Hill, Clarendon. Minister Chuck is also urging more Jamaicans to take up the offerings of the restorative justice centers. The Justice Minister was speaking Tuesday during his ministry's quarterly press briefing. Cabinet has approved the implementation of Phase 2 of the Education System Transformation Program. This phase will see the introduction of a science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics STEAM schools project. Education Minister Favour Williams says the project is expected to improve the delivery of STEAM disciplines.
The minister seeks to construct 6 such schools and 1 visual and performing arts secondary level public educational institution, and to integrate and implement a fully integrated information and communication technology system that would meet the ICT needs at all levels of the education system.
Minister Williams says approval has also been granted for the school architectural design competition to be excluded from procurement procedures. This means upon completion of the competition, the Education Ministry may contract the winning architect directly. The school architectural design competition aims to acquire the most suitable design to construct the STEAM schools. And finally, government is working on a plan to support firefighters in getting home safely after working long hours. Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie says discussions are underway with the Jamaica Fire Brigade on how the initiative may be implemented.
I think the occasion is ripe to engage the leadership of the brigade in some discussions as to how we can treat with situations that will prevent firefighters after completing long shifts to get home without them have to be sitting behind a wheel.
Mr. McKenzie made the statements during a recent visit with the servicemen and women of the Ocho Rios Fire Station. 2 firefighters attached to the station died recently in a vehicular crash after dropping home a colleague. Mr. McKenzie indicated that assistance will be provided to cover the late firefighters' funeral expenses. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
If you need help, ask for it. But the key is ensuring you check in with the correct source. Developing good parenting skills is hard work, and sometimes, just sometimes, you need a helping hand. Well, here's some expert advice.
Wouldn't it be great if children came into the world so well-adjusted or with manuals, therefore eliminating the need for parental discipline? This is not the case, however. Parents usually apply their methods or they depend on strategies taught throughout generations to guide their children.
8 in 10 Jamaican children in the 2 to 14 years age group experience violence as a form of discipline.
Coercive parenting involves the physical administration of pain as punishment. It also includes the use of harsh language that has the potential to hurt children's feelings and affect their general self-esteem and development. It also fosters aggression, because what you're really teaching children is that when there is an issue, we must resolve the issue through harshness, through aggression, through coarse language. There's a direct correlation between coercive parenting and the aggression that we see actually in society.
Damaging disciplinary practices have moved outside of the home and into the national consciousness. Children need guidance, and many wonder if not with the rod, then how? Enter the National Parenting Support Commission, NPSC, an agency of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. The ministry established the commission in 2012 to provide parents with the requisite skills and tools to raise children.
We work at 3 tiers. We work at home, school and community. Our first and most important priority, however, is to ensure that we're fostering the home-school relationship. We must ensure that parents as key stakeholders feel involved in the entire process of educating their children.
Now, to do this, the Commission assists parents in several ways, including providing psychosocial support, assisting parents with understanding the teaching-learning process, and conducting parenting education programs.
Through our effective parenting courses, we push proactive strategies. In other words, you are going to put structures in place before behaviors that you don't desire actually show.
Parents and guardians should consider the child's developmental stage when determining the best method of guidance.
A child who is very young, we encourage play. The child must be playing, and even the teaching learning processes must include play, because this is how they develop their imagination, their creative skills. This is how they also learn to resolve issues and to problem solve.
Young children, especially infants, are at the stage where they don't know right from wrong, and they can be impulsive. They may touch items that are valuable or dangerous. Usually, it is best to remove the child or the object from such a situation.
We don't believe you're to spank any at all, because that's a part of coercive parenting, and we don't believe that coercive parenting works. So what we encourage you to do, though, is to be firm and to be consistent. So if it means you have to say, do this instead, or do not go there a million times, then that's what you have to be prepared to do.
The teenage years can challenge both children and parents. With the physical and chemical changes happening in the body, teens may act out as they may be unsure of their place in the world.
This can be a very difficult time to navigate. So we ask that you start relaxing some of the very stringent rules, and you also have conversations and you compromise.
And to address challenges, caregivers can remove privileges.
If the child becomes stubborn, has a fixed mindset, if you will, that this is what he or she is going to continue to do, then you might need professional help. You might need to call the commission, or you might need to call a social worker or a guidance counselor to help.
Being a proactive parent means setting clear boundaries, letting children know what is acceptable behaviors and why rules are in place. And don't forget to model behaviors you want young ones to display. There may not be a one-size-fits-all for raising children, By assessing the right information and using effective parenting techniques, we can nurture adults willing to play their part in making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. To tap into information from the National Parenting Support Commission, call 876-967-7977 or visit their offices at 37 Arnold Road, Kingston 6.
Across the world, we're seeing reports of the pandemic heightening cases of child abuse because more children are staying home. Luckily, in our local space, help is being provided through the Victim Services Division. Here's more.
Children sometimes see too much. At other times, they hear too much. And many of them feel too much. There are situations where children become victims of crimes, seeing, hearing, and feeling too much of its effect. The hurt and trauma can linger without the proper intervention strategies. This is where government's Victim Services Division comes in. The VSD is having a far-reaching and sweeping impact as it provides help to this vulnerable group.
The Victim Services Division is that division within the Ministry of Justice, which is responsible for coordinating the ministry's support base for victims of crime. Anyone can become a victim of a crime. Victims of crime are often persons who suffer just about any crime you imagine. There are sexual crimes, small children, there is robbery, there is murder, wherein the primary victim, though, has deceased. The secondary victim, which is the family members, are there for the support that we give. We recognize that our victim population was getting younger. Whilst we still would have to communicate with them some of the complex concepts that are a part of the therapeutic process. Hence, we needed to find a medium that will allow for us to use their type of language, colors and sounds and movement.
Well, that medium the ministry found was the use of an animation bundle. It is comprised of 8 short films that offer therapeutic intervention and lessons to children who are victims of crime.
Your daughter was almost abducted today, but she was smart. She ran away. However, there is more she could have done. Walking with headphones on is a dangerous habit. You must be alert. Pay attention to your surroundings and the dangers around you.
Our animation strategy involves the creation of a character called Justy. And Justy represents all that is good and right about what should be done when a child is faced with a difficulty. A child seeing the animation immediately will be able to interact. They are short animation films, so the attention span of the child is not hampered in any way. And our intent is not just for them to watch Justy, but to become and to embody the teachings, the values of Justy in order to help other children.
I have not left the house in over 3 weeks. I came here to work as a helper, and now he tells me that I'm going to work at a nightclub.
Put these on and get ready. We're leaving for the nightclub in half an hour.
Anyone can be trafficked. It does not matter your age, gender, or race.
We also ensure that we would have elected to choose specific topics which were current and will remain current. Abduction is a reality. The matter of being bullied is a reality. Human trafficked is another reality, and among others. There are 8 animation films. And these are current, we have seen over time. We have had the opportunity to have children literally vet the animations, and we are very comfortable that they have the content that will reflect concerns that children would want to share with their friends.
But why was the Victim Services Division so sure that these animated videos would have or will even continue to pull the required effect?
The process of developing an intervention involves doing an assessment, we would have had the benefit of, over the last 20 years, 200,000 victims that we would have been able to assess. We would have had clear understanding of what needs to be done to provide support for the victims of crime, hence the program VSD. What we did was to use that 20 years of experience. We have a cadre of trained social workers, psychologists, various levels of competencies to work with children. And we have just managed to package this entire expertise into 8 animations. I am absolutely confident that they have what it takes to make a difference.
So even in all the challenges, the Victim Services Division is working to provide psychosocial support for victims of crime. The division is committing its unit to the advancement of victim rights, including those of our children. And your role can be as simple as speaking up.
Of course, optimizing care for our nation's future is important, but we cannot deny that an essential fabric weaving the culture and the legacy of any nation are its senior citizens. We're still in the throes of a pandemic, and while COVID-19 can be dangerous to anyone who is infected, older adults are more likely to get very sick from the virus. So, in today's Hear This, we share ways to care for seniors during this trying period. The fact is, in doing this, we will ultimately contribute to making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Here goes. The first thing, social distancing. If you're always out and about, then you shouldn't be in physical contact with senior citizens. Maintain your distance and isolate where necessary. And if you're the caregiver to an older adult, you should make it a priority to be extra careful. Second, help to inform them. Help our seniors sift through the COVID-19 related information. There's a lot of misleading content that can increase their risk of contracting the virus. So share with them accurate information on how to stay physically and mentally healthy during the pandemic and what to do if they should become sick. Third, help them become better at technology. Rather than visiting them physically, you could always let them know that there are alternative ways to connect through a digital space and perhaps teach them how to make use of these technologies. Let's work together and help our seniors stay safe and beat the virus.
Building reactors is expensive. That is one caveat in other countries having them to begin with. Jamaica was fortunate in that we had a predecessor, Professor Gerald Laylaw, who had contacts both within the government as well as in international agencies who funded the construction of this reactor in 1984, when the reactor was commissioned. We've been fortunate to use it for so many good works that Jamaica has benefited from since and will continue to benefit from in the future.
This nuclear reactor that we're discussing today is the Slowpoke 2 Research Reactor, located at the International Center for Environmental and Nuclear Sciences in Kingston. It is the only one of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean.
It's strange, not many people know that. It's not a power reactor, we don't generate electricity. It's a tiny reactor and compared to what you might have seen in the movies, actually. Our reactor is just 20 kilowatts, so think about it like 20 tea kettles in your house. That's the amount of power that it has. So it's definitely not power and definitely not going to cut your light bill right now. But what we use this reactor to do is research.
This is very important for us Jamaicans, as nuclear techniques have been applied to study a range of topics from health to agriculture and even climate change.
How the reactor works, it's a device that basically generates neutrons. These neutrons are generated through a process called fission. Fission is basically when the atoms split. So every time those atoms split, it's generating heat. We have a thing in the reactor called a control rod. So think of it like a flashlight. If I put that flashlight on my hand and it's on, you're not going to see the light. That light in this case represents free neutrons. As I lift that light, in this case the control rod, then I can see more glow. That's more neutrons available. And the more they interact is the more they split, and it's a controlled reaction that occurs in the reactor. When you think about power reactors, that heat that's generated is what's used to propel steam turbines and create energy that we would use as electricity. But in our case, since we're not using it for energy, what we're using it to do is basically irradiate the sample that you give me. So if you come to me as a client and you're curious, what's in my plant or what's in my soil, I basically expose your soil or plant to these free neutrons and it gets irradiated. Once you give me your sample and I expose it to radiation, it becomes radioactive. Since it's radioactive, it's basically going to start decaying over a period of time. When it decays, it has these unique gamma rays, which we can pick up on our detector right here. Those unique gamma rays there can tell me how much of what is in your sample. If you're curious as to how much arsenic is in your plant or how much arsenic is in your soil and chromium, that's the information that I'll be able to provide. The number may or may not mean much to you. How that relates is to regulatory policies that are set by agencies that are not us, for example, NEPA or even the World Health Organization. They have limits that are set for lead in soil or lead in plants or lead in water. What we can do is do our analysis and provide a result so that you have an idea of what you're working with, whether as someone going into agriculture or you're thinking about exporting. So this entire lab is a part of the whole process. When I get a sample and it's prepared, we package them in these polyethylene vials. That's what we use to send to the reactor. If you think about it like when you go to the banks in the States and you put your money in this tube and you shoot it to the teller, in this case the teller is the reactor. We do the same thing here, but they're much tinier vials.
This nuclear reactor and its value to the research field is part of what is helping to make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
After all that learning, we wrap here. Thanks for staying with us. A refresher of yesterday's journey and others can be had through the JIS YouTube channel. Also, you can visit the JIS's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for much more information. From all of us here at the JIS, I'm Theodore Henry. See you soon.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.